How are you doing, bro?
Hello, Russell. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. What you up to?
Oh, about 6 foot and 200 pounds as always.
How's weather?
I'm really pleased to be able to report
Yeah.
that we're above zero and we've begun to melt. So my fingers are crossed. This could be it could be an early spring.
Yeah, spring's 21st of March, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Often we have snow right the way through to the end of March and into April.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited,
Yeah.
be playing golf again in March and April.
Do you like golf, Bob? Yeah.
I like golf, but I kind of totally suck at it. You know what? It's a way to get 10,000 steps in and have a bit of a laugh, right?
Yeah. What? Knocking 120 shots for 18 holes.
Well, a bit better than that, but
Looking for the ball in the woods.
yeah, that's why I carry a spare one in my pocket all the time.
Do you know what I say to my kids? Where I'm from, there's a golf course called Crookhill Golf Club. And when I was a kid, I used to go up there for conkers from conker trees in woods. And
Yeah.
I'd go golf balling and I'd sell the golf balls 50p to the golfers. I tried to get my kids to come with me for the last 2, 3 years. Come on, let's go get some conkers. We'll throw bricks up at the conker things because they come
Yeah,
in like
yeah.
a green spiky thing, and then you open it, it's like treasure, isn't it? And then we'll
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
some golf balls, and they were like this on their iPads. No,
Yeah.
no.
No,
And I
it's a
said, well,
different
let me
world.
just show you on Google what conkers is. And then we found it on Google, and it's banned in schools now, isn't it? Did you know that conkers?
I read that they banned it. I used to love playing conkers as a kid, and you used to soak them in vinegar or put them in your mum's oven, make them
Varnish, your
harder.
mum's nail varnish on them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you'd inflate your conquer score. Mine's a 220.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you had the Joe Lewis of conkers, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what I do, I get a pebble and I drill through it in my dad's garage. And I put all shells around it and varnish it like that. And I'd be like, that's an 800er on an old bootlace.
So your
But
conkers were on PEDs, eh?
yeah, but yeah, exactly. But now they're not interested. But then when we found it on Google, and I was showing my Reggie, and he went, "Oh, it's banned. Can't do it, Dad." So I'm like, and it's banned in schools in UK. I don't know about in Canada, but it's
Yeah, I
banned.
don't know in Canada, but I read that it was banned in schools in the UK, the whole
Yeah,
health and safety, right?
yeah. It's a left brigade, lefties, isn't it? Woke brigade, but hey ho, Bob, what would you like to talk about today? I'm going to let you pick a topic. I've just spoke with Anthony. We've had a two-parter and Terry. Well, we only covered a little bit on this, but me and Anthony covered it in depth because he's a chemist, isn't he? And whatever
Yeah.
scientist and that, a very smart individual living in Mexico. But this antihistamine, we've spoke about that. I just wonder what were your thoughts on it? Without going in deeper, because we've got no proof that the kids cheated, and Don Charles has come out fighting for Dubois, but Dubois hasn't said a word. I just wonder what your overall take were on it now that it's been a week since he pulled out the fight.
Well, as you may or may not know, I've done a couple of videos on my channel, and I've not been making any accusations against
Oh, I
anybody at
know. Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Um, but what I've been asking is why hasn't there been more clarity and transparency? Because if you don't have clarity and transparency, then people are naturally going to start thinking up questions and speculating themselves.
Yeah.
And this was a multi-million dollar organization that was putting on this show. And the team, Dubois' team, has access to media and PR people.
Yeah.
Why wasn't there a proper press conference with doctors and other persons present who could have put this to bed immediately? Right now, everybody is left to speculate online and, in their sports bars and amongst their own, in the gyms about like, why hasn't there been some genuine quality information? And even if, for example, you were a massive fan of Daniel Dubois, wouldn't you be worried about your favorite star's well-being? It's inconceivable to me that, you know, a young man grown up in the digital age with access to all forms of communication hasn't gone on social media to say something like, fans, don't worry, I was sick, it was glandular fever, it was this virus, or I had a stomach thing. I want to reassure you I'm going to be fine. Like somebody could have written a script for him. But this sort of cone of silence that's descended upon everything causes us to kind of wonder why, because it seems so incongruous that there's been this silence. And I'm afraid to say that the longer this silence goes on, plus the somewhat inconsistent messaging that we're getting from the likes of his promoter, that sort of doesn't sit well with me. It's sort of, it leads me to wonder that there's something amiss. And I would like to be wrong. I would like the sport to be squeaky clean.
Yeah.
But the reality is, we've seen instances throughout the sport's history where shady things have gone on. So inquiring minds want to ask questions. I've taken some stick on my channel from people who are telling me that, you know, I'm some sort of conspiracy theorist. And you know what? I hope that they're right.
Yeah.
But until there's some information, we really don't know. So that's my feeling on it.
Do you feel that they've got something to hide? Because if they didn't have something to hide, they'd just come out and say, you know what, he's been struck down by this serious virus and he can't fight and blah, blah, blah. But it's like you just said there, Bob, it's the wall of silence. And all we've been thrown is Don Charles coming out saying that anybody suggesting anything untoward is a hater. He's a hater. Well, tell us what's going on then, Don, you licker.
I mean, you know, if you're going to just accuse somebody of being a conspiracy theorist or a hater when they're asking a reasonable question, to me, that shows a sign of intellectual weakness on your part, right? I mean, if you're going to resort to insults at the very first suggestion of a question, that's just no good lawyer or PR person would ever tell you to do that. I mean, it seems really weird. And I'm very sorry to have to say this, but relying upon the word of Don Charles, who I'm not making any accusations against, that's weak because he's in the employ of Mr. Dubois. And it's a little bit, to be honest, like asking your mum to give you a character reference. I mean, there's an inherent bias.
Well, Don Charles is not going to want to burst a bubble, is it? Because who were he really trading before he got Dubois fell on his lap? And let me tell you this, Don Charles ain't getting 10% because I know what Mark Tibbs were offered. And when Mark Tibbs gave Dubois a trial, the old man were putting spoken, so he never really got to that. Do you know what I mean? And Mark Tibbs and his old man Jimmy went, thank you, but no thank you, because the father's too involved. But Don Charles is willing to do anything. It means Chisora left him 6 times. That's like your missus shagging about 6 times and you keep taking her back. What sort of trainer gets shit on 6 times and then comes squealing about it years later? What and then takes you back. So Don Charles is a yes man. Yes, Mr. Dubois. Yes, Mr. Dubois' dad. No, no, sir. 3 bags full, sir. He's one of them, Don Charles.
Of course, he's employed by the person, right? It's like, you know, if somebody asks you when you're in your place of employment, can you give me an honest assessment of the CEO or your supervisor? It's like, oh, they're wonderful to work for. I really like working here. I mean, because anything other than that is likely to get you a pink slip, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thinking. But just to sum up, this could have been put to bed so very easily had there been honest and truthful reporting on day one. We would have probably all said, oh my God, that's so sad. We all hope that Mr. Dubois gets better as soon as possible. But the delay and the obfuscation and Frank Warren's, you know, shoulder rolling and sort of, you know, aggressive behavior, that does nothing to satisfy anybody. And like I say, I've taken some stick online because I've been asking questions. And I think it's a sad state of affairs that you can't even ask a question. You should never be shat upon for asking a very reasonable question. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that one. Who's going to take them on, though, regarding this? Is any TalkSport or any YouTubers saying, Frank, why is Daniel Dubois not coming out? I'm not going to have a pop at him and call him John Coffey. I'm just going to say, why is Daniel Dubois not coming out and doing an interview? Nobody's asked Frank Warren that, Bricktop, and nobody's asked him, while we're on this subject, can you explain antihistamines, because they're a banned substance on VADA's list? You know, why is nobody asking them?
Again, these are very basic questions. They're not rude questions. They're not accusatory questions. And honestly, we are in a very sad state of affairs now, where we seem to lack any form of what I call active journalism. We are simply seeing these YouTube folks and other media folks who've got access, quite frankly, parroting a company line. You know, the irony is all the media think they desperately need this access. But the reality is, can you imagine a press conference if no media showed up? It's a symbiotic relationship. Warren and the fighters and the trainers, they need the media as much as the media needs them.
Well, why aren't they standing up to them then, Bob?
I believe you might say a lack of knackers, but but yeah, it is the strangest thing. It is like they are frightened of these people. And you can see this on the interviews where people, you know, so pusillanimous, they come up and say, oh, do you have a minute? May I ask you a quick question? I know you're busy, but did you like the Burger King? You know, they're sort of bullshit questions from people who are almost on their knees begging for a few words. And that's exactly. It's shameful, really. You know, people like Howard Cosell must be spinning in his grave.
Stig, right? He's a bit of a character on social media. I've actually been down and seen him a few times. He lives in Surrey. He actually lives in a block of flats where Jimmy White lives, a snooker player. I think that's his claim to fame. Stig has asked a question and he wants me to repeat. He's a bit eccentric. He wants me to read it out to Terry, but I think it came a bit too late. So I'm going to read it to you, Bob.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, Terry, good to chat with you. I'm watching a bit of this. I'm enjoying watching The Crown, actually, on TV. I've had a great day out today at the business. And,
come on, go on with it, Steve.
Relaxing at home. I'm going to have a cheesy bake and a soft baguette. They do these amazing cheesy bakes in Middles. I recommend them. They are fabulous. Put them in the oven. Half-baked, crusty rolls.
Come on, Stig.
Baguettes. Absolutely delicious. But no, do you think that Tyson Fury has underachieved in his career? Made a lot of money, but he's underachieved as a top heavyweight.
Do you think that Tyson Fury, Bob, this was a question for Terry though, but he's used to come to Dennis's shows, he's been to after parties with me, and that he's actually a good night out, Stig. I've been to Surrey racetrack with him, and that he's an entertaining guy. He's a cabbie in London, and he's got a sports car. He's a bit eccentric, but he's a nice kid. He wants to know if Tyson Fury's underachieved in his career, Bob. What do you think?
Well, financially, he's overachieved. He's the most highly paid boxer, certainly in 2024. For his social media presence, he's overachieved. For public recognition, he's overachieved. I would say for the collection of belts alone, he has probably achieved everything that would reasonably be expected. But, and this is a very big but, in my view, the quality of his resume is very poor, and it could have been much better. He only fought 4 people who were at any time champions: Vlad, Wilder twice. I know he fought Wilder a 3rd time, but Wilder was not a champion at that point. Old Steve Cunningham was number 4. And he only had one mandatory defense of his title, which was against Dillian White. So he could have fought a number of other top contenders, at which point then we would say he's done exceptionally well. He's achieved, he's maybe even overachieved. But for the moment, and I just look at resumes, okay? I don't look at tax returns and whatever. I looked purely at resumes, and based on his resume, I would say that sadly he's underachieved.
Yeah.
Now, of course, many of his fans would say that's bogus. Look how famous and rich and all that sort of stuff he is. So it depends upon what measuring stick you want to use. I like to use the measuring stick of who did he fight and who did he beat, in which case I would have to say that he is underachieved.
Yeah, I've been banging on about that for a long time, and Carl Froch obviously must have seen what I've put out, and he went on to mention, look, you've got 4 wins over champions, former, current, and future, and you'd say Cunningham were an old man stepping up from cruiserweight. Vladimir were 4 months before his 40th. And Wilder twice, and he knew what to expect because he fought him the first time, which was a draw. So he's got 4 wins over champions. Ali's got 16 in a 1 belt era. So that's the difference between, and Lennox Lewis has got 14 in a 4 belt era. So he's way down the pecking order. I don't have Fury in my top 20.
No.
All time. I'm sorry, but I don't.
I keep 2 lists. I keep an all-time list. That goes back to sort of John L. Sullivan. Yeah. And then I keep a list of people in my lifetime. So the last 65 years. Yeah. And I'm afraid in the last 65 years, I do not have Tyson Fury in my top 20 either.
Yeah, other people do, but they're people, fanboys, aren't they? But what's being peddled in the media is you can't go against them because you've got the big dad in tow at every press conference. Everybody's scared to death. We've all seen how he carries on. I mean, if this was a fairy tale, John Fury would be the troll under the bridge, wouldn't he? Do you know what I mean? You even heard him yourself on one. I always put the clips on my channel where Cameron does when he gets his finger out and he's doing an interview and he's like, that film Braveheart, Mel Gibson, that leper in Loft, I'm him. Well, that's him. So you've got him to contend with if you want to dispute it. Now, we've not seen his father really and heard from him because of what happened when he nutted that. Who is it? We've hardly seen the father since the first time they fought, when he stuck the nut on the guy. They lost that fight. The rematch they lost, the 2 Usyk losses. He's disappeared, the father, because once you get beat, the invincibility goes, doesn't it? But he will be back, beating the drum, because they'll just want to mop up what's left, but they're hanging about for big paydays. But when you've got no belts, good to anybody. But he's a showman, so they're trying to maneuver, in my opinion, all these belts back into his direction. And the only person they can use to get these belts back in his direction is John Coffey. Because they're going to throw him at Usyk now, and they're going to try and job Usyk. You'll watch what happens. Usyk will know this because he'll be thinking, look at that Shiraz fight. If I'm going to be undisputed and keep all of these belts, I'm going to knock Dubois out again. So what he'll do, Usyk, he'll mesmerize Dubois and he'll drown him late on. That's what's going to happen. Watch it unfold. And Usyk's 40 on his next birthday. Is he 39 now? Is he? Or 38, 39?
I think he's 38. I think
he's 39 next birthday, isn't he? He's in his 39th year against the guy in his 28th year. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. So there's like 10, 11 year difference. So he's a decade or so younger, but he's not at that level that Usyk's on. And he's probably just a nodding dog. Well, I'm going to get paid more for this than Parker fight. They're protecting their guy because they want them belts back. Bricktop wants all them belts to control them all. Now, they're going to do the best to try and take belts off Usyk. They might get the WBO off him at some point because Bricktop's got a bit of pull with him. You can see what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's got Joseph Parker on board. But if they throw Parker at Usyk, he gets beat. If they throw the other fella, Dubois, against him, he gets beat. No matter how old Usyk is, he beats both of them. He'll beat Parker. and he'll beat Dubois again. But why should he have to fight everybody twice?
Well, my own personal view is I don't really want to see Dubois against Usyk again. I understand why Usyk would take it, because it would be a chance to become double undisputed in the four belts era. But I'm not interested in seeing a retread or rematch. I would much rather see Usyk, who's only got 2 fights left, fight a fresh face.
Yeah.
I think both Parker and, frankly, Caballel deserve a title shot.
Yeah.
Whether they fight against Dubois or whether they fight against Usyk, I'm not super concerned. But I'm tired of seeing movies the second time. It's not like we're going to see a vast difference. The only concern I have, and I think you've just alluded to it, is if the fight goes the distance in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I have no confidence now that the scoring will be even-handed and fair. And I think it would be an absolute travesty if Usyk was to have his title stolen off him by sketchy judging.
Yeah, I do. And you know, the funny thing about it is, I look at Usyk, and he kind of like reminds me of Joseph Parker. They conduct themselves perfectly in public and in interviews. They're respectful. Parker's not got the resume. He's not 335 and 15 as an amateur. European World Olympic gold, WBSS gold as well with helmets off. He did Joyce in final, didn't he, over 5 rounds? Beat him up. He's beat everybody at cruiserweight undisputed as a pro. Everybody is an heavyweight undisputed as a pro. He's undefeated. He conducts himself perfectly, but we're not going to see another Usyk in this era. And I think it's a shame if they shaft him, because you can see it's going to happen, because he's going to fight on too long, isn't he? That's what I think. I don't know. What do you think, Bob? Do you think they'll get shafted?
Well, I'm very fearful that he will get shafted. I'm also fearful that he will fight on too long. Yeah. The only heavyweight champion that didn't fight on too long was Rocky Marciano. It seems to be that every champion takes that one too many. I mean, Lennox Lewis was very lucky in his last fight against Vitaly Klitschko, and thankfully Lennox did then retire. But, you know, you look at Larry Holmes, you look at Ali, you look at all the great champions, they all went on too long. And then people are left with a misleading impression. You talk to people today about Joe Louis, and all they remember is Joe Louis getting wiped out by Marciano. They don't remember the great Joe Louis. They remember the much diminished Joe Louis. And it would be a pity if Usyk is remembered in such a way as well.
Joe Louis, a 14 stoner.
That's right.
Well,
I don't.
Oh, sorry, go on, Bob.
If I can just jump in, I don't believe that heavyweight boxers have to be 18, 19, 20 stone in weight. There's absolutely no reason why anybody needs to be more than 225, to be perfectly honest. History shows us that a 225-pound man has got more than enough snap and power to drop any other human being. But it seems to be the case these days that we're looking at 20 stoners, which to me strikes me as just, quite frankly, unhealthy.
Yeah, getting back to Marciano, Bob, he got injured. That's why he retired. Otherwise, he'd have been like Joe Louis, wouldn't he, really? You think?
Yeah, he also was influenced by the fact that he finished Joe Louis's career, and he said he didn't want to end up like that. Yeah. So he was very cognizant of this happening.
Ali were like that, though. He retired, but they were tempted back, wasn't he? Because he had an entourage to feed, didn't he? When he went after he'd done Spinks, he got out, didn't he? Because he beat everybody he'd fought, didn't he? After Spinks, everybody who he'd lost to, Fraser and Norton, he rematched them. He ended up going 2-1 against both of them, didn't he? And he went 1-1 with Spinks, but he realised he had no left. But then Don King dug him up, didn't he? Then shafted him by £1 million.
Yes.
$1 million.
And he should never have fought Holmes, and he should never have fought Burbeck.
No, he shouldn't. So, and do you know what? He finished against Burbeck, and he was an Olympian, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I was very happy to see Tyson put Burbeck on Queer Street as a revenge. It's one of my favourite fights to watch.
Do you remember when he went up to him in ring, Ali, and he said to Mike Tyson, "Get him for me. Get him for me."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Mike Tyson, who at the time had gonorrhea, didn't he? Gonorrhea, or something. He got a sexually transmitted disease. He wanted to get Burbeck out there quick and then get to hospital, didn't he?
Yeah. He was a hell of a lad.
Yeah,
I know you're pushed for time, but do we have time to talk very briefly about the excellent Conor Benn, who's
yeah, that's what I wanted to finish on now. Let's have a look. Let's give it 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. Go on then, Bob. Let's have a look. Yeah,
so it was an excellent press conference. My brain was scrambled watching those soft-boiled boys. So, no, I mean, pantomime, absolute salesmanship pantomime, in my view. Of course, I'm not a fan of either fighter, and
no.
but for the fact I'd watched two guys fighting outside the pub, and I've got a boxing channel, I wouldn't pay to watch it. But I actually did think that Chris Eubank Jr. sort of owned that press conference. I particularly liked the way that he told Eddie Hearn to shut up. And the egg thing at the end, I mean, that had to be pre-planned. It's sold tickets. It set the internet alight. Pure pantomime, pure theater for a fight that otherwise, I mean, I don't believe serious boxing fans want to watch. And if Eubank beats Benn, which one would expect him to do so, they're going to put him in with Canelo, and that'll be a murder. I mean, but that's my thinking on the whole thing.
Turkey Al Sheikh, right, has put a post out on Instagram saying the winner gets Canelo, but is he forgetting that there's a rematch clause as well? So there'll be no Canelo.
That's right.
They'll milk it twice. They're going to take these two lads to meat market because they don't care. Eddie Hills, he don't care for Crusher Ben. He'll tell you he does because he's aligned with Sims Gym and all that. And Crusher's, we've had him from day one and all that. Nah, he don't care for him. It's just the same talk, but he was coming out with when he had Lee Purdy. That's all. So it's just bullshit, right? He don't care for him. And Ben Shalom, he don't care for Eubank, but Eubank don't care for him. Eubank can't stand promoters. Him and his dad really can't stand boxing people. They're just there to ponce a living, right? If Eubank Jr. were any good, he'd have been chasing belts down. Because if you're good enough, the money comes. But they all want a shortcut. They all want to be gimmick fighters. They all want to sell themselves on social media, but not picking up any belt. How many fighters are out there now who actually want to win in belt? Nobody's talking about belts and British titles and going through the levels. Area, English, British, Commonwealth, European world. They all want to go Twitter, Instagram, build something up and chat a load of shit, WWE, to get to the money and bypass all them rankings and hard graft and putting the hard road running in. They all want to miss it all. And that's what I'm seeing. And the sport is slowly dying because how many times do we see interviews where people are saying, do you know what? I want to win a British title and I want to defend it outright. How many people do we hear us saying that? How many people actually want to win a British title and win it outright? When do we ever see that? When Carl Froch did it. When do we see that? I think Brian Rose did it. How many people actually can do that? Tyson Fury didn't do it. Joshua didn't do it, win it outright. Nobody wants to learn their craft and hone their skills. Nobody wants to do it. And it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, Bob. It does, because I'm disrespecting the British title. And the British Boxing Board of Control, they're about as much use as a curly whirly in front of a fire. And you know what a curly whirly is, don't you?
Yes, I do.
It's a chocolate bar in UK that's very popular in my house.
Yeah. The British Boxing Board of Control. Sorry. Go ahead.
It just gets me down, Bob. It does at times. Gets me down.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never again see the likes of Henry Cooper, who won outright 3 Lonsdale belts and was proud of the fact that he had 3 Lonsdale belts outright. I mean, it used to be the case that the British champion, that was a pinnacle of your career. And then you look to see what you could do on the world level. So you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be really bad for the sport as a whole. And maybe we can pick this up the next time we chat. I'm cognizant of the fact that you have a hard deadline here today.
Yeah, listen, Bob, let me just finish off on this, right? Let's have a look. Right, we've got about 5-6 minutes. Let me just finish off on this. Where I'm from, it's a mining community, right? And there's a pub in the village called the Tumbler, right? And the landlord used to be Bruce Woodcock. And you know Bruce Woodcock is, don't you? An heavyweight boxer. They were a
Yeah.
British Commonwealth, a European champion. He never won the world title, but he had a win over a champion, but the belt went on the line. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they did fight again and he got beat, but they fought in front of 70,000 at White City in London. The point I want to make about Bruce Woodcock is when this is stories that my granddad doing very, very, very well. And he worked
Hmm.
on pit and he worked on railways. He used to run in boots in the morning. When Bruce Woodcock walked into the Tumbler in his heyday before he ended up the landlord there, he'd walk in there and people laugh when I tell this story and they take the piss. Well, let me just say this. They say, stand up! Because you've got a British champion walking into that pub on a Sunday dinner time or on an evening, you know, Wednesday or Thursday night for a game of darts or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And they clap that man in there. Just men, just no, they won't get women in that kind of pub. And they clap him in. And the respect shown because he was a British champion, heavyweight champion at 13 stone 7, 13 stone 8. Go look at it.
Yeah.
And Tyson Fury told me a story once in Peter Fury's gym on Halliwell Road, Bolton. And he knows all about that. He knows his history, Tyson, as an historian.
Of course he does.
And he told me this story, and you know where I was from and that, because his girlfriend's from a couple of villages away from where I'm from, Paris Fury. She's from Arksy. And he said, I'll tell you a story about Bruce Woodcock, Porky. I said, go on then. And he said, they were going where the HMP Marshgate prisoners in Doncaster. This is in the 50s after Bruce's career had finished. He said they were going over, and some relation of Paris had told Tyson this Fury. They were going over the bridge and they broke down on the bridge in some old car. And they were dressed as women. Bruce Woodcock and his mates were all going out and having a laugh. And they had to push it over North Bridge dressed as women. You know, just, I don't know why, but, and he was telling me this story about that. And I thought it was so funny, but Bruce Woodcock is a legend where I'm from, and he ended up blind before he died. But point one, and he ended up living over the road from the Tumbler pub, still in the same village he grew up in. But like I said, when he went in to the local pub in the village, he was clapped every time he went in, and he was a British champion. So where's the respect being put on the British title? Because I remember Josh Wales' dad, Mick, and Josh, when Josh won that British title, Mick was so proud of his lad because they worked all their careers to get that belt. Where's the respect being put on the British title? That's what I want to know. What's your thoughts on that, Bob?
Well, you know, there were
minutes.
times when I was growing up that people like Jack Bodell, Joe Erskine, Henry
Yeah.
Cooper were legendary names that you automatically put respect upon. I mean, today, even most recently, Fabio Wardley has talked about giving up his British title to take on, you know, other contenders. And I thought it was just a little, I understood what he's talking about. I understand the money, but I thought it was sad that somebody would almost so casually give up a title that many, many great fighters gave blood, sweat, and tears to obtain. And like I say, I grew up in a time when, you know, Brian London, Jack Bodell, Joe Erskine, these were people who were, you know, trying so very hard to win the British title. It actually meant something. And as you know, I'm a fan of boxing history. So now when I see people either skipping the British title or being willing to relinquish it for purely financial reasons, part of me feels very sad about that.
Yeah, and I feel very sad as well myself, Bob. It's disrespectful. And the Border Control should put a bit more pressure on people to say, here, come on, you promoters. Let's get rid of these trinket belts. Let's have it British, Commonwealth, area, English, British, Commonwealth, European, and a world title. Forget all this international stuff and interim and all that. Let's just forget it. Let's just work up rankings. And like Muhammad Ali in an interview with Parkinson was slating Henry Cooper, slating Joe Bugner, and Ali turned around and he said, "You're having a go at the number 4 ranked heavyweight in the world, and let's just go back to what a rank, one lot of rankings. It's number 4 guy. You can't say he's the 4th best in the world. I'm the champion, and you know we go down the rankings. And Ali just over 2 careers he had. Ali, he just went through all ran through everybody, didn't he?"
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of a top contender that Ali did not fight. You know, from the first career when he went through Liston, Patterson, Terrell, Cleveland Williams, and all those other good fighters, to his second career with, you know, Frazier, Oscar Benavina, Norton, Shavers, Foreman. You know, you look down a list of who's who, and the chances from the 60s or 70s, and the chances are that Muhammad Ali fought them and beat them.
Jerry Quarry.
Absolutely.
He'd be a cruiserweight champion today, wouldn't he, Jerry Quarry?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the champions of the past, and I often think, you know, can you imagine one of today's boxers across the ring from Sonny Liston, and realizing that Sonny Liston was actually intent not on getting a social media presence, but on killing them in the ring.
Twice Ali done him.
Yes, he did. Yes, which is a hell of an achievement, actually. So, right. But there we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. And keep in touch, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye, Porky.
Which one is it? Let's have a look. Oh, that was Bob from Canada, Canada's boxing channel. Nice to have him on. I want everybody to give him a subscribe. And Andy's Cavern. All right. I'm going to get this out straight away today. And tomorrow, Friday, there's going to be Terry part 1 and 2 and Anthony part 1 and 2. 4 videos for you tomorrow that you will really enjoy, I promise you. But this one's been fantastic with Bob. Okay, peace out. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. I better get going. Pop, pop, bang.